But it's God who's doing this work. And I was amazed this morning. One of the sections in my message this morning, and I only got about half of my notes covered, one of the sections I had after music, which we never got past, was courtship. And Daniel gets up and has an hour on courtship. And I said the Holy Spirit knew exactly what he had in mind today. And I think he wanted us to spend our time in music. So praise God. But there's so many beautiful things. And I told Daniel, I want to just put an exclamation point on a couple of things there. I'm going to only spend a minute or a couple minutes here. But so Brother Daniel got married in 1999. My wife and I got married in 1991. His father was also our father, 8 years earlier. And so some of the slightly over-the-top things that Daniel talked about was like pretty way over the top when we started courting. We were the first ones. Daniel was the oldest of his children and was 10 or 11 years old. And my wife lived in Denny's house. We were also one of the first couples, courting couples, that Charity had officially. One of the first marriages there, so we were truly guinea pigs. We had some difficult things. We were not allowed, hands off was a given. We were not allowed to ride in a car alone together ever. And so we just, there was rules that were put on us. And so we felt at the time some of it wasn't fair. One of the worst dressing downs I ever got from Brother Denny, and I loved him and he loved me. But there was one time when I was about 90 seconds late from curfew, and I think the curfew was 9:30 or something p.m. Wasn't late. But I was about 90 seconds late, and the drill sergeant part of Brother Denny came out with all his military experience, and he let this young man know that deadlines meant something. You will not be late again. And guess what? I wasn't. So we went through that. But guess what? My wife and I have been married now for 34 years. How many years for you, Brother Daniel? 27. And here we are. We did not suffer from that. Daniel submitted to that. We chose to submit to that. And I will tell you, the beginning of our wedding, that first night we got to spend together, and coming together after all of that discipline in our courtship could not have been more beautiful. It is worth it. This love triangle that Daniel drew, that's one of the things that I love to go over. The reason Brother Denny was so strong in the beginning of all of that process was because his only frame of reference had been that love triangle upside down, which is how the world is. Erotic love is the thing. He didn't know that you could actually have a good courtship without the erotic part of it. He was afraid of that. He knew what the erotic part had done for him, and he wasn't having that. So I respect why he was so concerned. And his over-the-topness didn't hurt us. So I'm just telling you, whatever things you feel are like, you old-fashioned parents, no, you will not die. And it'll actually be good for you if you can submit yourself to it. You'll be grateful for it years down the road. So Daniel said it well. I'm not going to re-preach that. I want to say one more thing in relation to hands off. And I hear this all the time from young people that feel like, you were raised in another date and time, and it's really just not that big of a deal. I can hold my girlfriend's hand, and it's not going to be the end of the world. We can do a little touching. All right, if your parents are asking you not to do that, if your church leaders are asking you not to do that, you are not the first ones to wrestle with that. I grew up in the Eastern Pennsylvania Mennonite Church, which is a very scripted church. We had very strict rules. One of those rules was hands-off courtship, and it just was that way. That was the expectation. Most of the young people, when they were visible, honored that rule, but there was an awful lot that went on that was not visible, that wasn't good. And there was far too many of them that ended up in bed together in the last 6 months after they were engaged. And this was a church that had the rules. All right, when I was your age, I went to Numidia Bible School, which is the Mennonite Bible school there. Eastern still runs that Bible school. It's a little different than this, 3 weeks long. We lived together in a dormitory. Girls had their dorm, boys had their dorm. So we were separated, but we had classes together all day, 5 days a week, 3 weeks. It was pretty long. And it gave us a lot of opportunity for interaction. It's a lot of good things. I went there for 3 different years, 3 different terms. Do not regret the experience. But one of those times, We had lots of opportunity to sit and discuss together, boys, sometimes girls too. We could talk about things together. There's a lot of things that we could engage and talk about. What about this? What about that? One of those times we were in the dorm, and this whole subject of hands-off courtship came up among the boys. It was only boys there. And one of the boys was like, you know, it's just so crazy. The church got these rules, but I can hold my girlfriend's hand, and it really doesn't mean that I'm going to fornicate with her. We can control this thing. And he was challenging one of the older bishops that was there. His name was Paul Eberso. I can still see him. He was a small man, not big, pretty quiet, didn't say a lot. He listened to what this boy was saying and took his challenge. And this boy was directly challenging him. Give me a good reason why we have to have this rule the way it is. And Paul didn't say much. Finally, after the boy, he heard the boy out, and then he said that there was a table there, like our tables downstairs, and chairs on both sides, and he said to the boy, just come sit across the table from me. By that time, a number of us other boys had caught on to this conversation. There was a whole group of us standing around there. Paul sat down across the table from him and told that young man, I want to hold your hand. Held his hand and just looked at him in the eyes uncomfortably long, probably a good half minute. It was getting creepy. And he just kept looking at him. Finally, Paul said these words. I'm 55 years old. I have never forgotten this picture. Paul said to that young man, does this feel like your girlfriend's hand? No. Paul said, that's why. That's why. I never forgot that. And I want to tell you, you have a whole lifetime to enjoy the delights of physical connection. It is the icing on the cake. It is a beautiful thing in a marriage. Don't spoil it by indulging in something that lights fires you cannot satisfy until you have permission. We'll talk more about some of that as we go into this session here. Technology, because there's a lot that involves purity in this session. But I wanted to just share those two things in relation to courtship, to put an exclamation point there. The things that Daniel and Christy shared with you are beautiful. Learn them. Make them convictions in your life. It's not just your crazy parents and preachers. All right, so one of the greatest challenges facing young believers today is learning to walk in holiness in a world that is increasingly shaped by technology. And that's my title today, Technology and Godly Youth, subtitle, Walking in Holiness with Technology. How do we walk out faith that we've been studying all week with all this technology? Technology is unlike any influence that previous generations have faced. It is changing rapidly. It is deeply personal. It is often hidden. It shapes identity. It shapes relationships. And it shapes habits. And all those things are very significant. Filters can be bypassed. Rules can be avoided. And all adults often have little visibility into private online life. This applies to music, and it applies to every other thing that you do with your phones and technology. And I'm going to say right here, filters are good. Accountability programs are good, but they're not good enough. I am unwilling to trust in a filter, and my internet at home is filtered. I'm unwilling to trust in an accountability system to keep my young people in line or to keep us safe from these dangers. It's going to take more than that. And I'll just tell you this too. I'm not going to tell you how, but I have not yet found a filter that I can't get around. I've not yet found an accountability program that I can't get around. Some have told me they're out there. I haven't found it yet. And I sat one time, and I'm very good friends with a lot of people that work in this arena, and I'm happy that they are. This work needs to happen. Many of you are familiar with Compass. How many of you have Compass on your phones? All right, a few of you. Compass is a very, very good, one of the most robust filter programs that there are, and I think if you're going to have one, it's a good one. It can be very restrictive. They have a lot of different levels. If you get their more restrictive levels, it actually it makes the internet kind of hard to use because so many things that are okay also get filtered. It's pretty difficult. But James Martin, who is one of the top men there at Compass, is a very good friend of mine, pilgrim minister down in Missouri. and we have a lot of interaction, a fair amount of interaction outside of Compass or anything else, just personally. He's a very spiritual man. I was at their Compass, whatever they call it, their conference that they have once a year down here in Wyoming, maybe 4 years ago, and James spoke there. He had the keynote speech one day, and one of the things that he told the men that were sitting there is that as we deal with this issue of the internet, and we look at the exposure, and we're all concerned about the exposure to our youth, but the reality is you old men who are sitting here and must have the internet for your businesses, you're willing to sacrifice your young people on the altar of materialism. And I listened to what he said, and I was surprised that he was actually willing to be that bold. That was a pretty bold statement for him to make, but he wasn't wrong. And with the knowledge that I had there already, I knew what he was talking about. And I went to their tech support guy, whom I also knew, and he was the one that had set up everything. We're here in the Compass conference, and this internet, we had internet, but it's all locked down and filtered with all of the best Compass technology. And I said to him there, I said, so can you block this? And I gave him a certain internet protocol that I knew, and he said, no, we can't. If we did, a lot of the business programming wouldn't work. And I was pretty sure that was the case. And I said, so if you can't block this, and I can use this, then there's also this I can use too. And his head kind of dropped, and he said, yeah, you're right. And so I wasn't supposed to know about that. You're not supposed to know about that. And I'm not going to tell you what those tools are. But the reality is, if I'd have wanted to, and I had a heart that was searching after it, sitting right there in a Compass conference, which is all about securing the internet, I could have accessed the hardest core porn I'd have wanted to. My point is, there is no filter that is going to protect you. There is no accountability system that is going to protect you if you don't get the rest of what we want to look at here today. So I want you to remember that. There is a major reason that pornography and harmful content have become so widespread among youth. About 8 years ago, Timothy Stoltzfus, and I think I mentioned him to you on Monday, did this survey among Mennonite youth, sent out about 1,200 requests. I was a little off in the amount of responses he got. I went back and looked at it again. It's 650 that came back, all across the spectrum of Mennonite youth, from Eastern Mennonite and nationwide, which are some of the more conservative, to BMA on the liberal side of things, and everything in between, and it included a lot of charity youth as well. So he had a very good cross-section of Anabaptist youth that he was asking these questions to, and the survey was anonymous. No names were needed because he was asking a lot of very personal questions, but he really wanted to understand where are our youth today and what are the issues that are facing them and what are the things that they're struggling with that we as parents need to understand. And it was a very good survey, all covered an awful lot of ground. But one of the questions he asked them is, how many of you have ever viewed pornography? And 8 years ago, among the boys, it was 70%. Among the girls, it was 19%. Now, I'm sure 8 years later, we have gone significantly past that. And I'd love today, I debated if I should do this, but I think I'm going to try. I need you to really, really cooperate with me to make this work. I'd really love to see here where we're at on that issue. And I'd like if everyone could close their eyes and bow your heads, but I need everyone to close your eyes. This must be confidential with the exception of my eyes. Can everybody else close your eyes? Nick, that includes you. All eyes closed. All right. Now, boys and men, let's start with you. How many of you here who are a male of the species has never encountered pornography in your life? All right. I've got 3.5, maybe. One wasn't sure. 3.5, maybe 4. All right, good. Girls. Now let's go to the girls. Eyes closed, heads bowed. All eyes closed. Girls, how many of you have never in your life seen pornography? All right, I got significantly more there, but not still a majority. I'm going to estimate that I might have seen 15 hands among the girls. So I'll let it there. You can open your eyes. I'd like to ask more questions, but it obviously gets deeply personal, because having seen it once is not the same as having viewed it in the last months, or viewed it the last 6 months, or viewed it the last week. So, if we were to get down to some of those questions, we would understand whether this was an incidental something that you didn't mean to and you saw. But my point is this: we are living in a time that's over a 90% rate here among the men, 95. And I don't know, 75% among the girls at least, 75, 80. Well, there was 15 of you, maybe not, 65. But that's significant. Do you agree with me? And I knew that we would be farther along than what Timothy Stoltzfus had found, because we're 8 years farther down the road. Now let me ask you, what are we going to do? There's a couple things I'd like to say here, and I want to talk about this significantly. But this situation opens up a whole lot of issues to us that have got to be considered. And one of them is, it's actually got to become a more normal and safe thing for us to talk about this here. And we have to find appropriate ways to do that, but we've got to engage the discussion. Too many of our churches, we are not willing to even open the subject up. It's hush, it's quiet, it's taboo, and yet we've got 95% of our men who have been exposed to this, 60, 70% of the girls. This is not a situation that we can continue to allow to go on this trajectory and expect things to be okay. We're going to actually have to figure out how to collectively come together, confront the situation, and embrace solutions and find a way out. I would be willing to say, and I'm going to just go on my pastoral experience from having talked to so many of you boys, but I'd be willing to guess that there is at least 30 or 40% of you here, and it might be significantly higher than that, but who struggle with pornography on a regular basis. I am not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I have talked to so many. I've been involved in Bible schools now for quite a while. I understand. And can I tell you, you're not weird. There's nothing wrong with you. But you find yourself growing up in a time and in an age where these challenges are confronting you in a way that they never have before. I will tell you, if we can't get a handle on this, it will destroy you. All eyes closed. It will destroy you. Now, boys, and I'd like to say to the girls today, how many of you here, not only is this a problem for the boys, it's an increasing problem for the girls. Boys definitely have a more of a propensity to pornography than girls do, but increasingly there are girls who are finding this stuff also, and it is affecting their behaviors and affecting, there are habits that come, and self-pleasuring is, masturbation is not just a problem for the boys anymore, it's also a problem for the girls. And so, what are we going to do if we want to have marriages like Daniel and Christy was talking about? We're going to have to bring this thing out of the closet and figure out how to confront it and figure out how we're going to walk in victory in spite of it. That is my goal today, to try and explore some of those tools and some of those paths. Would you pray that God helps us to do that? While parents and leaders play a role, and I do believe that as parents, and I will speak to the parents that are here today, I know this is youth, but as parents, we've got to take this issue seriously and start doing our jobs to engage with our young people, both in communication and in safeguarding what we can. Same is true for preachers. And that's more than just making rules. There's actually needs to be a lot of communication around it. But youth, you are going to have to learn to walk in personal holiness in these matters, regardless of what your parents or your church leaders do. Your parents and church leaders cannot save you from yourself if you are willing to engage these things. I've told some young men that. In fact, I think I can say this, and I don't think he would mind. If he were here, he would share his testimony with you. One of my sons went through a real struggle with this issue. It was my fault because I didn't realize the power of what I was giving him when I gave him his first smartphone, and he got a smartphone when he was 16 years old. And my first three I made some real mistakes with. Fortunately, I learned from those mistakes, and I might share more with you about my last four later on. But this young man, and he's a fine young man today, I'm really grateful for the redemption God has done in his life. He's walked a journey, though, to come through that. But there was a point in time as he was facing this battle, and he was confessing to me where he was, and I was engaging with him as father with a desire to help him. But I had to tell him, son, you know what? I'm going to do everything in my power to help you, but I can't save you from yourself. This is absolutely something you are going to have to engage on a personal basis, or you're going to crash and burn. And yes, it'll be partly my fault because I'm your dad, and I failed to protect you, and I'm sorry. But here we are. We've got to figure out how we're going to walk from here. He took that serious, and I'm grateful he did. And he allowed me to help him. And together, we climbed out of that. But it wouldn't have worked if he hadn't been willing to allow me to help him and engage in that battle. And that's just the way it is. So you young people are going to have to learn how to walk in holiness personally. God is calling you to develop internal convictions, self-control, and holy habits in a digital world. What is my scheduled time? Wow, okay. I'm really almost halfway here. You must develop internal convictions, self-control, and holy habits in a digital world. God's call for youth, God has created you with purpose and identity, and we looked at that, Genesis 1 this morning, and how you're created in His image. You're created to bear His image and reflect His image. That's God's mandate for you. You're commanded to love Him with all your heart and walk in His ways. Deuteronomy 6, these words which I have commanded thee this day, you will have them in your heart, and you will love, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. And these things teach them to your children and your children's children. That's God's command, and He calls you to that. So as you grow up, you must take ownership of your own spiritual formation. Again, your church leaders and your parents cannot do this for you. They can only help you in the process. But you've got to take ownership of your own spiritual formation, and you need to make it your own priority to make the choice of holiness and to walk in that choice. No one can force this on you. And one of the reasons that it is not possible for anyone else to do this is because it has gotten to the place where there is no parent and there is no church leader who can be with you all the time to make sure that you're not getting into negative things in technology. We can't do it. I am very familiar with churches who live by rules. I grew up there. I know how they work. I still have many friends there. One of my best pastor friends is a pastor in the Pilgrim Mennonite Church. They have lots of rules. We have these conversations all the time. He's in the system and he knows that what they're doing is failing. I'm outside the system and I see the failures too, but we have our own struggles. And so we talk together about how to do this. But they got the rules. The problem is they can't enforce them. Because when you've got one of these things in your pocket, there is just no way the preacher can keep you from doing things on this phone. So they can say, no CCM music. You can listen to CCM music. They can say no movies. You can watch movies at night if you choose to. They can do all these things, but it's still here. They're losing this battle, and I feel that in 30 years, 20 to 30 years, there's going to come a major reckoning because you cannot live. What is it called when you profess one thing, but you live a different way? What's that called? Hypocrisy. That's exactly right. There was an old sweeper salesman one time that came to our home to clean sweepers, and he was an evangelical of some sort, and he loved to witness everywhere he went. Of course, we were believers, so we had fun when he came. But he said, you know, people say there's hypocrites in church, so I'm going to stop going to church. And he said, well, where would you expect to find hypocrites? Of course they're in church because they're professing something and not walking out what they profess. And it's true, and we should never use that as an excuse for not doing the right thing ourselves. But hypocrites is not who God wants. We're called to be true and honest and faithful. So there's going to be a reckoning when those things finally come to somewhere. The challenge of technology for youth, and I want to look at about 6 points here if I can get through these as to how this is a challenge. The first one is that you are the first generation that's been raised inside social media. How many of you are born after 2005? All right, just about all. How many were before 2005? All right, got about 10, 15% that were earlier than that. So for all of you who were born after 2005, literally all of the social media that we are familiar with these days have come since you were born. Didn't exist before that. The only one, and MySpace, probably you've never heard of that one anymore either. That one died about 5, 6 years ago. MySpace was 2003. Facebook was 2004, but it didn't go public until 2006. That's when it first started. Took a while to gain traction, so it was about 2009-10 when Facebook began to take off. Today, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. YouTube, 2005. Twitter, 2006. WhatsApp, 2009. Instagram, 2010. Snapchat, 2011. Telegram, 2013. Cloudveil, 2014. Signal, 2015. And TikTok, 2017. And there's probably some I don't have on that list. Now, we can do this with our eyes open, I think. Be honest, please. How many of you have a Facebook account? All right, hands up high. Come on. It's all right. If there's preachers sitting here, it's good for them to see it too. All right. Good. Thank you. How many have a YouTube? How many use YouTube or have access to YouTube? Yep, I figured. That's great. How many of you have a Twitter account? All right. I expected a few, but that's exactly what I thought I'd see. WhatsApp. All right, most of us. Instagram. Fewer of us, but some. Snapchat. All right. Telegram or Cloudveil. I'm going to say add Cloudveil in there because it's built on the same thing. Telegram, Cloudveil. All right, good. Signal. All right, not quite as many as WhatsApp. And finally, TikTok. All right, got a couple. So I'm going to tell you, and look, you are all my friends no matter what you choose to do. Just like this morning, I'd like to give you the information and let you make the decision, okay? But everything I said on that list has a degree of usefulness. The most sketchy ones there, well, there's one that I'm not sure has any usefulness, and that's Snapchat. I would really encourage you to reconsider Snapchat, because Snapchat was created for a devious purpose. Simply the bottom line, I could go and show you how Snapchat came into origination, but it was in the context of college students who wanted a way to exchange lewd messages without accountability. So they created this platform where they could exchange lewd messages and have them disappear. That is why Snapchat was created. And that's also largely why Snapchat still exists today. Now, I'm not saying it has to be used that way, but from everything I know about Snapchat, you're not going to be able to have a Snapchat account without having some of those lewd things thrown in your face. That's just my observation. And I haven't found anything that you have to do on Snapchat that you can't do just as well or better on one of the other platforms that doesn't have that baggage with it. So there you have it. And the other one is TikTok. TikTok is largely an entertainment platform. There are occasionally useful things you can find on TikTok, but by and large, TikTok is a place where you're going to spend time in entertainment, looking at one clip. And incidentally, all of these, Facebook is one of the worst offenders of having algorithms that are designed to keep you on there for hours at a time and feed you in so many ways. We're going to talk more about some of this, but you know, they send you a friend request. They'll send you a friend request sometimes from sometimes people you don't even know. But if your profile's open, somebody can find it and, oh, this guy looks cool, let's send him a friend request. And so you accept it, and that takes you to their friends and their friends and their friends. And before you know it, you can spend hours just exploring people's profiles and all who's friends of which friends and whatever. It's designed to draw you in. It's designed to consume you. It's designed to addict you. To the point that some of the creators of this technology, Steve Jobs was one of them, was very concerned about what would happen to people who, his offspring and people who were coming behind him in relation to some of this stuff. Anyway, so be careful. I would definitely encourage you with both Snapchat and TikTok to reconsider whether those are things you really want to have on your phone if you're going to try to live a faithful life. But your parents grew up without any of these, and you've grown up with all of them. This means that you face temptations that they've never imagined. You navigate pressures that they've never experienced. Where does it leave you? Remember what I said earlier? Potential. You've got opportunity here to take these tools and learn how to sanctify them with the help of the Holy Spirit and discipline them. And essentially what it is, you need to develop spiritual muscles that they never needed. Now I say they never needed. They're coming along behind you and having to learn all this stuff too. For them it's a little bit easier because they at least put their life experience on top of this. But you are needing to develop some spiritual muscles that they never needed. And you're going to have to figure out what that means and how you're going to do that. So that's one of the big challenges. You are the first generation that's raised inside this, and that cannot be helped. All of these things, we could even say that, we're just not, and some of our churches are doing this, and listen, I respect any efforts, however they're made, but we're just not going to have this stuff. We're going to ban Facebook, for example. YouTube is a hard one. And I'm not surprised to see how many of us have used YouTube, because YouTube has so many good uses as well as negative uses. But to be bluntly honest, there's probably actually more harmful content on YouTube than there is on Facebook. But you know why we don't block why we can't block YouTube, or why we have such a hard time with it? Because there are so many good uses and so many things that are essential to our businesses and whatever, and our occupations and whatever other things we do. There's so many good uses of YouTube that we just can't arrive at a place where we say we're going to ban YouTube. Now there are a few church groups I know. There's an extra conservative one that split off of Eastern about 5 years ago over these issues. And they just said, look, this is too dangerous. We are not doing the internet at all. And they just banned the internet, period. So they don't have any of this stuff. And they're hoping, by taking that approach, they can avoid all these pitfalls. They probably will to a certain extent, but it's a little bit like trying to drive a horse and buggy in a world where cars are the mode of transportation. And I find those people often going to the library to use the internet there when they have to use the internet to do something. And guess what? The library is the very worst place you could use the internet, because those places are where people are going to do things that you don't ever want to engage on a computer. And there are tracks left behind from the guy before you. It's very likely if you go use the computer at the library, you're going to eventually encounter something that's not good. So there's pitfalls no matter what we do, and technology is not going away. So we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. What are the challenges? Well, content, as we've already talked about, is a huge one. Pornography, indecent images, degrading humor, and immoral entertainment are everywhere. And listen, what you consume shapes who you become. Okay? What you consume shapes who you become. And of course, there's real pornography, which is simply sexual actions that are put on screen. And yes, it's degrading. Yes, you can't separate that from lust. Yes, it's base. But there's an awful lot of material that is maybe not straight out hardcore pornography, but gets to be it still is degrading. I want to tell you something. God created us in His image to be honorable. You cannot engage in any of the things that are going to go down that road and expect to become a person who can reflect His image in a wholesome way. And this is true for boys and girls. But I want to say something especially to you boys in light of this. You cannot fill your mind with impurity and expect to walk in holiness. It will not happen. God says to you, as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. You can't do this in private and then come to church. That thing's back there somewhere and nobody knows. No, you are a hypocrite at that point. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, as you do in private when nobody's watching, so are you. Same is true for the girls. A number of years ago, Frank Reed stood in the pulpit there at Ephrata, and I don't remember what the event was. It might have been a Bible school. It's quite a few years ago. And he said to the young people that were there, and he said to the boys, I'll never forget this, he was talking to them about, profitable relations. But he said to the boys, boys, I want you to know something. The purity of the girls is your responsibility. And that got my attention. And I've done a lot of thinking about that. And I 200% agree with Brother Frank. And I want to lay that on you boys here today. The purity of the girls is your responsibility. And so often we shift that responsibility onto them and we say, you need to dress modestly, you need to be careful how you walk, you need to be careful how you sit, you need to be careful. And you know what? I know the matrons talk to you about this, and that's great. They're right. Not taking away from any of that. 100% right. But I want to tell you, that is not why they should do it, so that you can have a pure mind. Yes, as chaste girls, they should try to not be temptresses. But the purity of the girls is your responsibility. How? Can you think about Joseph there in Egypt again? When Potiphar's wife was throwing herself at him in the most provocative way and soliciting from him the very thing that every young man is tempted with when pornography comes their way. And what did Joseph say to Potiphar's wife? I'd love to, but I just know bad things are going to happen. No, there was no hesitation in Joseph. Do you know he guarded the purity of Potiphar's wife? She was angry, and he suffered because she didn't get what she wanted. But Joseph did what I am asking you young men to do. Joseph recognized that she was Potiphar's wife. She belonged to Potiphar, not him. Joseph recognized that even though she was soliciting from him that unfaithful act, it would have violated her purity for him to give that to her, in addition to violating his own purity, which is why he said, I cannot do this great wickedness and sin against my God. So for all those reasons, boys, it is your job to guard the purity of the girls. And you can do this. But when you allow yourself to view images that evoke impurity in private, you are compromising, you are taking from some girl somewhere. Somebody's behind that image. And you are taking something from her that she is not supposed to be giving you, something that you are not supposed to be receiving from her, and it doesn't matter if it's on a screen. Some years ago, I was in Ghana. I was in Takrady and walking down the street, and all of you who have been in Ghana, I think, can relate to this, although maybe in the north it's not quite the same. Have you ever seen crazy people in Ghana? Yeah, a few of you have. I've seen lots of them, and it's kind of sad there because crazy people are people who should be in a mental institution. They've lost their minds, or somebody should be taking care of them. They're not normal people. But this was when I was about 25 years old. We lived there in Ghana for a number of months, and walking down the street in Takrady, and here's this crazy person. Except this wasn't one that you see every day. This was a beautiful young woman. She was maybe, I would guess, upper teens, very early 20s. Very shapely body, very beautiful, and completely naked, walking down the street. Her mind was gone, and she didn't realize what she was doing. Now here I am. What am I supposed to do? Oh, can't look at that. You know, I learned a lesson there that day that I never forgot. God created girls beautiful. God created your bodies to be attractive to the boys. But that body was not for me. I have a wife. Furthermore, that dear girl didn't know. She could not realize what she was doing as she walked down the street with a beautiful, well-formed body, naked. How many men were taking from that poor girl something that was so sad? And I can't imagine what her existence might have otherwise been with men who were willing to take advantage of her just because they could. But that day my prayer was, God, thank you for making women so beautiful. Now would you protect this poor girl? Would you watch over her and give her some care and protection? My point is, if you will give your hearts, boys, to be sanctified before God, and to realize you have a God-given privilege, not just a duty, but a privilege of living and walking in honor that is going to protect the innocence and protect the purity of the females in your life, you will have won what Joseph had in Potiphar's house. I have tested that so many times in my life since, and I am 100% convinced this is the answer to walking in purity. It's good for you to choose not to look at images that are going to tempt you to lust, but you need to learn to connect your heart with God in such a way that if you are inadvertently presented with something, and I will tell you, girls, and this is why the matrons talk to you, it is very easy for you to walk and sit and act in ways that can certainly attract the attention of the boys in carnal ways. That happens. You don't even realize it, but it's because of the way God made you and because of the way God made you. It's good for you and for your mothers to help you learn how to be careful with that, but it is even more important for you boys to be willing to protect the innocence of the girls and not take from them what is not yours to have. When you get this deeply into the fiber of your being, you will begin to have the tools that it takes to walk in victory in a world where pornography is staring you in the face. There is no possible way that I can totally prevent you from facing the temptations that are come to you from this screen. Can't do it. And if not this screen, you're going to face it somewhere else. But I can tell you today, you can develop within yourself the same kind of moral fortitude that Joseph had when he said, how can I do this great wickedness and sin against my God? And I need every one of you today to realize, you can have this. It's here. And there is no rule, there is no parent, there is no pastor that can prevent you from having this. But if you're going to give yourself to this, if you're going to indulge in this, if you're going to go down this road, you cannot have this and this. You can't have them both. And all the beauty that you've seen, Daniel's testimony, so many ways, you cannot have this and this. We're talking about actions of faith and making a choice in your life. And I'm telling you today, you've got to make a foundational choice. Which God you want to serve. Once you make that decision, it's possible to walk in victory. And I can tell you that. I have filtered internet, but you can put me in a hotel room where the internet's not filtered. I'm not going there. Yeah, I could. But I'm not going there. Do you know why? I don't want what that's going to do to me. I don't. I love my Jesus. And I want to live for Him, and I want to serve Him. And I know if I give myself to indulge here, it's going to compromise this. And so I have made my choice. And it doesn't mean I'm some kind of a Superman. It doesn't mean that I am not tempted just like all of you. It's just that I have made my choice, and I don't want it. And I'm asking you today, are you willing to make a choice? Otherwise, technology is going to destroy you on some level. I got to say a bit more yet. So what do you do if you find yourself trapped in this? And there's probably 30-40% of you here that feel like you're in some way trapped. It might be higher. That this thing is, starting to have a grip on you, and you're wrestling with it, and there's the binge purge cycles. You know you shouldn't, and you kneel down and you pray and you say, God help me, I'm not doing this again. That lasts until the next time when your feelings and emotions start to get weak. And then Satan catches you in a weak moment, and down you go. Well, now I've screwed up. What does it matter? You indulge. It's a binge. And that goes on for a while till you again feel so guilty. This is so rotten. I just can't keep going on. And that binge purge cycle goes on and on. It's endless. You will never get out of that unless you take some specific actions. I've talked to boys who have been wrestling with that for 7, 8, 9 years. Sometimes they'll walk in victory for 6 months, and then it's down again. There's only one way I know, and it works. You can get out of that. You can learn to walk in victory. And every one of you here today, if you find yourself trapped in this, can walk in victory. And girls, I'm speaking to the boys, but you too, please, don't ignore me. You can walk in victory in these things, but here's what it's going to take. First of all, you've got to make this choice I'm asking you to make today. You've got to make it. Nobody can make that for you, and it starts there. And you need to get on your knees, and you repent before God of this idol that you have allowed to affect you in your life, and you ask God to help you rise up in victory over this. That needs to be done in the presence of some others, because this one is strong enough, you're not going to overcome it by yourself. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're not going to be able to go pray in your closet and come out and walk in victory long term. Not going to happen. So just get over that. You're going to have to be honest. This is one of the reasons why our churches need to become safe places as faith community where we can honestly open our hearts and share with each other and say, brothers, I want to walk here. I'm struggling. Can you help me? Or sisters. Needs to be okay for us to do that. Now, I'm telling you, we're here at Bible school. You're here to grow. You're here to take some steps forward. When you have your prayer groups this afternoon, I'm not saying you have to, but if you're here and you would like to make that commitment today, I'm encouraging you to tell your prayer group, by God's grace, I want to put this stake down in my life. I'm scared. I don't know how this is going to work, but I know I need it. I know continuing down this road is going to destroy me. I want to pray, and I want you all to pray for me. It's probably going to be some of your prayer groups where all of you are going to be able to pray for each other in this. That's the first step to victory. Make that choice. The second thing that must happen is engagement with faith community. Okay? You need to go home and you need to think about the faith community you've come from, and you need to find at least one, but preferably 2 or 3 people who can be on your team, and they can be others who might struggle with similar things, but you're going to help each other. And depending how deep your addiction is going to depend how deep you need to go in that interaction or how intense it needs to be. If you're really deeply addicted, where you're struggling to go a day or 2 days or 3 days without an episode of engaging in pornography and the things that come along with that, then you're going to have to treat it like a 911 system. When that temptation comes along, you're going to have a way to communicate, and fortunately technology makes that possible and easier, that says, help, I'm facing a struggle. It might be 11 o'clock at night, that's often when it is, but I am facing a battle. Can you help me? Can you pray? I will tell you, engagement with others in a time like that is crucial in being able to get past those. Get past one, the next one will be a little easier. And if you fall, do not stay down. Do not hit the binge cycle. If you fall, get right back up and say, God, forgive me, but I want to walk in holiness. All right? And engage this with your peer group or your support group. But bring that accountability into play. And then be honest with the people in your life. And I know this is hard because there's so many families where this isn't okay to talk about. There's so many churches where this isn't okay to talk about. So find your way before God, but you need to open your life in accountability to other believers. If you will consistently follow those steps, you can climb out to victory. You can do this. There is victory to be had. So I want to give you that hope, and I want to tell you, if we learn to walk in sanctification and honor, we are going to be able to experience the power that technology can bring into our lives without walking in the defeat that it so often presents to us. All right, so that is content. Stewardship of time is another one. And in Timothy's survey to the youth, that was the number one thing they said when he asked, what is the number one problem in your life? The very first one was too much time wasted on my phone. And that was about 70% of them. And this was 8 years ago. And the second one was too much time spent in social media 8 years ago. Do you think it's gotten any better in 8 years? No. So that is a huge one. And stewardship is what we have to look at there. Addictions are formed so easily, even with innocent activities like gaming or just scrolling through content that is otherwise harmless. But technology offers endless opportunities to waste time. And this is where TikTok is one of the worst offenders. You look at one TikTok video, the next one pops up, 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 and all of a sudden an hour has gone by watching these stupid little 15-second clips on TikTok. How many can identify with what I just said? Yeah, let's be honest. And how do you feel after we wasted that hour? We feel fulfilled, we feel inspired, we feel built up, we feel recharged? No. You feel empty. I know, because I've been there. Time wasting. Hours disappear with little time to show for it, leaving you empty and unfulfilled, and many youth suffer emotionally and spiritually because of this. The fourth one is relationship shifts. Online relationships are shallow, they're wide but not deep, they're detached from family and real-life community. And I'd love to have time. I had 5 PowerPoint videos, but I think I'm going to skip it, Nick, because I'm too tight. But I had a PowerPoint that showed a nuclear family with a father and mother coming together, children being born, and God's design is for them to function together as a unit inside the circle of the home, and they are together there. But now, oldest child turns 16, gets a smartphone, and all of a sudden there's a connection to that heart that's reaching outside the circle, to about a half a dozen people out here. And after a while, mom and dad get smartphones, or maybe they have them before the children, and now they've got connections out here. Let that go on long enough, and the heart moves from the center of the home, which is where our relationship should be, closer to the edge, because out here is where we're communicating. Not with 1 or 2 or 3, but with 20 or 30 or 100. And we turn these relationships on and off as we feel like. You don't like me? Fine, I unfriend you. Does it work that way at home? No. Is that how God designed our relationships to work? No. So you fast forward that then, and let everybody in that home get a smartphone. You know what? The home is hollow. We're still coming back to sleep at night. We're barely talking to each other. Everybody has their own plans that are all related to all this stuff going on out here in the stratosphere. So you've got this circle of the home, but you've got all these connections going far, far and wide with all these contacts way around here. Everybody's stressed out, and nothing's functioning in the home relationship the way it should. Now that's just the home. Talk about churches. And that's why I am happy that they took your phones from you this week and gave you the opportunity to sit here, talk, engage face to face, build real friendships that have meaning. And I know you can unfriend somebody in a physical way too, but it's a lot harder than pushing that little button on Facebook. Sure is. And all the stuff we get on social media, where you post your breakfast, or I don't know, girls, you post all kinds of stuff that are pretty and cute and whatever else, and then somebody says, "Oh, that's so cute, you look so beautiful," and what happens? You all of a sudden feel like, woohoo! And the same thing's true for the boys. And then on we go, but what are we feeding in each other? What is the depth of those relationships? Do you get what I'm saying? And this is not just a Christian concern. I've got so much material I could show you that has been researched by non-Christians, completely secular institutions, where they are studying the effects of these things on the way we think and how our relationships function. We've got to take ownership of it. So I will tell you, I have a Facebook account. I haven't probably logged in for the last 3 months. The only thing I use Facebook for is if I need to sell a chainsaw or I want to buy a chainsaw or something else. Facebook Marketplace is very useful, and it's the best place anywhere to sell or buy something. But I simply don't use Facebook because I don't want the time that it's going to waste. I'm saying no to that, just like I say no to the other bad things that are over here in content. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a useful tool, but it's got to be disciplined. WhatsApp is tremendously useful, but we got the channels now. I don't even know what's on those channels because I haven't taken the time to explain them. to explore them. But I'm afraid some of you youth might. This is why Weaverland Conference banned it. They don't allow Facebook, but they allow Telegram, which got all its own pitfalls. I don't have time to go through all the possible ways that all of these platforms have to bring you devious material. But I'm telling you, every one of them have pitfalls. All right? Every one of them you can use useful parts, but you must learn how to discipline yourself and sanctify yourself in their use. And I am so rapidly running out of time again. But these relationship shifts are so good, or so significant for you to consider. So, what are the solutions? Spiritual heart transformation, making intentional choices, learning moderation. Joseph's example, we talked about that. Walking together as a youth community. What does holiness for youth look like? Holiness in the digital age means guarding your eyes, guarding your time, guarding your relationships, guarding your heart, choosing purity when no one is watching, choosing depth over distraction, choosing Christ over culture. It's not enough to do this because where you grew up. What does holiness look like for youth collectively? We're all here. Well, a youth group where purity is valued. A youth group where we can kneel together and pray for each other when we're facing a particular battle. A youth group where we encourage each other to shun the evil and lock into a relationship with the Lord Jesus. Where accountability is normal. Where it's okay to walk up to each other and say, brother, how are you doing in your moral life? Has anything impure tempted you this week? Can we get to a place where it's okay to ask each other those questions? It's going to really help us. Girls, ask each other, how are you doing with your social media? A place where apps and phones don't control your life. And there's so much I could say about that. Where's my moderators? We've been going overtime all day. Can I have 5 extra minutes? Or, okay, thank you. Daniel had told me, he said he wasn't going to be here for this session. Some of you sent one team members that came back. He told me have made commitments to buy alarm clocks, real alarm clocks. So you don't have to use your phones. I'm not going to ask you who you are. But that's great, and I'd like to encourage you to follow through with that. One of the things that you must do if you're going to win this battle with technology is learn how to control the alerts and the notifications that are on your phone. It is very, very hard to do what Daniel was saying in terms of tending the fires when your phone is right there by your bedside and it's ding, ding, ding. Somebody else is saying, that picture's so cute. Oh, your breakfast, that was amazing. Whatever. All the foolish things that go on social media, and every notification comes through. I will tell you, and I am one, I can't not have my phone at my bedside because I work in EMS. And so our EMT calls can come in at any hour of the night, and I'm a volunteer, and the information's there on my phone. But you know what I've done to manage that? I turn off every single notification. And I'm sorry if some of you are trying to reach me on WhatsApp or anything else, I might not get it right away because I've chosen to limit those distractions because I don't want the distraction of those constant notifications. And it's a battle. I have to go through my phone pretty regularly and just turn them off in these settings. All right? So that's the way I have to do it in order to survive. And I do a tremendous amount of things with my phone that I'm not even going to bore you with because you would wonder how I can do everything I do. But it's a useful tool, but you've got to manage it. Most of you do not have those needs. So buy yourself an alarm clock and put your phone somewhere out of reach. Put it on silent so it's not bothering you and let it there until you're done sleeping, until you're done tending your fires with God, and you're ready to pick up your day again. Turn off your notifications, please. Now, I would really encourage you to tremendously limit any social media beyond what is necessary for communicating. You're just going to be better off that way. A youth group where friendships build you up instead of tearing you down. And incidentally, this is another whole thing, but the health, the mental health of a youth today in our society nosedived since 2010. Teen suicides have gone way up. Teen depression multiplied significantly, and it all correlates with this blow-up of social media. It's no coincidence. It is a direct correlation, because the same false feelings of being wonderful that you get when somebody says, oh, you're so cute, and oh, you're so pretty. No, the exact same things happen when somebody tells you the other way, some criticism. And, you know, girls can fight. I raised 6 girls. But when girls get to fighting or saying not nice things about each other, it gets serious. And there are so many people who have gone all the way to the point of suicide because they struggle with not feeling accepted, and they not feel worthy, and they not feel. Brothers and sisters, can we just put that whole world away and sit down face to face and share the love of Christ with each other in a meaningful way? You'll be far better off. Encourage each other towards righteousness, a youth group where we choose to be different from the world and where Christ is Lord over your digital life. There is so much more that I could say, but I'm out of time. I hope that I have whet your appetite to consider these things. You are the generation with the greatest potential we've ever had. You've got incredible tools at your disposal. God wants to use you. Will you yield your heart to Him to be sanctified by His Holy Spirit so that your use of technology can be something that reflects His honor and reflects His glory? May God bless you. Thank you for your attention.